The quantum arrays at the Lunar Deep Space Detection Facility picked up the signal on a quiet Thursday morning. Dr. Elena Santos stared at her holographic display, coffee forgotten in her hand, as the distinctive pattern repeated itself every 4.3 seconds. After 15 years of searching the cosmos for signs of intelligent life, humanity had finally received its answer. "This can't be random noise," she whispered, her fingers dancing across the haptic interface. The signal contained clear mathematical sequences, prime numbers, the value of pi, and what appeared to be coordinates. It was both a greeting and a plea for help. Within hours, the International Space Coalition had assembled its brightest minds. The signal originated from a vessel approximately 2.5 AU from Earth, just beyond Mars' orbit. Its trajectory suggested a controlled descent into the solar system, but its velocity was decreasing rapidly. Admiral Chen Wei stood before the United Earth Council, his weathered face illuminated by the chamber's soft blue lighting. "The vessel appears to be suffering from critical system failures. Their message indicates they're refugees from something called the Orcs Dominion. They're requesting emergency assistance and asylum." The council chambers erupted in heated debate. Humanity had prepared for this moment for generations, but theory and reality were vastly different beasts. After 6 hours of deliberation, the vote was unanimous. Earth would extend its hand in friendship. The ISS Mercy, humanity's most advanced long-range rescue vessel, departed Earth orbit within 24 hours. Captain Maya Patel commanded a crew of 40, including first contact specialists, xenobiologists, and engineers. As they approached the alien vessel, its organic-looking hull gleaming dully in the distant sunlight, Maya felt the weight of history on her shoulders. Approaching final contact position, Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from the helm. "The alien vessel's power signatures are extremely weak." The alien ship was a marvel of engineering, nearly twice the size of the Mercy, with sweeping lines that seemed to defy conventional physics. Its hull bore evidence of weapons fire, lending credence to their refugee story. First contact proceeded exactly as the protocols dictated. The aliens called themselves the Cathari, a species fleeing genocide at the hands of the Orcs Dominion. They were bipedal, vaguely insectoid in appearance, with iridescent carapaces and multiple pairs of arms. Their gratitude seemed genuine, their story heartbreaking. For 2 weeks, the Cathari shared their knowledge freely. They spoke of faster-than-light travel, of peaceful worlds burned to ash by the Dominion, of technologies beyond humanity's wildest dreams. Earth celebrated its first alien friends, and plans were made to help them establish a temporary colony on Mars. Nobody noticed when the Cathari ship's quantum signature changed slightly. Nobody questioned why they insisted on maintaining their ship's core systems independently. Nobody suspected anything until it was almost too late. Dr. Santos was the first to notice the discrepancy. A subtle variation in their communications frequency, a pattern that didn't match their original distress signal. When she ran the analysis, her blood ran cold. The original signal and their current transmissions had fundamentally different origins. "They're not refugees," she realized with horror. "They're scouts." Her warning came just as the Cathari ship's true nature revealed itself. Its damaged hull regenerated within seconds, weapon sports appearing where none had existed before. But what emerged from hyperspace behind them was infinitely worse. A vast armada of ships, each bearing the true mark of the Orcs Dominion. The Cathari weren't fleeing the Dominion, they were its vanguard. The ISS Mercy's destruction was meant to be a message: submit or be annihilated. Instead, it became humanity's wake-up call. Captain Patel, in her final transmission, managed to send a complete scan of the enemy fleet's capabilities. Her last words became humanity's battle cry. "They expect us to kneel. Show them how humanity stands." The Orcs Dominion had made a crucial mistake. They assumed that humanity, like so many species before them, would break at the first show of overwhelming force. They didn't understand that humans had spent their entire history preparing for existential threats, real or imagined. Every war game, Every science fiction story, every defense protocol had helped create a species that was ready for this moment. As the Orcs fleet approached Earth, they transmitted their demands for unconditional surrender. The response they received was not what they expected: silence, followed by the largest mobilization of military and industrial capacity in human history. Humanity had been betrayed, but they hadn't been broken. In orbital shipyards and underground factories, in laboratories and military bases, the species that had clawed its way up from the African savanna prepared to show the galaxy why you should never corner a species that had turned survival into an art form. The game of deception was over. The real war was about to begin. The Orcs fleet emerged from hyperspace near Jupiter's orbit, their ships blotting out the stars like a metallic plague. Over 10,000 vessels strong, their armada represented the largest invasion force ever assembled in this sector of space. Their supreme commander, High Marshal Cathax, stood on his flagship's bridge, his chitinous mandibles clicking in anticipation of an easy victory. What he saw instead made him pause. The space around Earth's orbital paths had changed dramatically in the 30 days since their scout ship's destruction. Where there had been only a handful of defensive satellites and primitive spacecraft, now stood a complex web of structures and vessels that defied the Dominion's intelligence reports. Impossible. Cathax chittered to his subordinates. Their technological level was assessed at barely pre-FTL. This level of mobilization should have taken years. But the Orcs had failed to account for humanity's greatest weapon: desperation paired with innovation. The moment the ISS Mercy was destroyed, every major nation on Earth had activated their black projects. Technologies that had been deemed too dangerous or controversial for peacetime use were now humanity's lifeline. Deep beneath the Himalayas, Dr. Elena Santos worked with a global team of scientists to decrypt the quantum signatures they'd gathered from the Cathari scout ship. "They think their technology is beyond our comprehension," she muttered, her eyes reflecting streams of alien code. "They don't realize we've been reading their playbook since day one." The first wave of the Orcs assault launched with precision, thousands of fighter craft streaming toward Earth's orbital defense grid. They expected their advanced shields to brush aside any primitive human weapons. They were wrong. Humanity's orbital defense platforms didn't fire conventional weapons. Instead, they activated what the scientific community had dubbed probability mirrors, quantum field generators that turned the enemy's own shield frequencies against them. The first wave of Orcs fighters began to disintegrate as their shield harmonics created cascade failures in their hull integrity. Admiral Chen Wei, now commanding Earth's combined space forces from the EDS Retribution, allowed himself a grim smile. "Activate the Chimera Protocol," he ordered. "Let's show them what humanity does when backed into a corner." Throughout the solar system, automated mining facilities that had been converted into weapon platforms came online. The asteroid belt, long thought to be merely a collection of space rocks, revealed itself to be an elaborate trap. Thousands of asteroids, hollowed out and fitted with engines over the past month, began to move with purpose. Thax watched in growing horror as his neat formation was disrupted by a battlefield that seemed to be alive. Human ships, smaller but more numerous than expected, darted between the asteroids with impossible precision. Their weapons were crude by Orcs standards, but they were being used in ways that defied conventional space combat doctrine. "They're using the gas giant's magnetic field to amplify their weapon yields," his tactical officer reported, mandibles trembling. "And their ships, they're not following any known combat patterns. It's as if each captain is fighting their own war." That was exactly what was happening. Unlike the rigidly hierarchical Orcs, human fleet commanders had been given significant autonomy. Each battle group operated independently, following the basic strategy of disrupting enemy formations while avoiding direct confrontation with superior forces. The space around Jupiter became a graveyard of ships. The Orcs' superior technology clashed with human ingenuity and desperation. For every human vessel destroyed, the attackers lost 3 of their own to traps, ambushes, and weapons they couldn't have imagined a primitive species possessing. But the true surprise came when the Orcs attempted to use their quantum communications to coordinate a new attack pattern. Their secure channels erupted with human voices, transmissions in every language on Earth, broadcasting directly into their command and control networks. "Did you really think we wouldn't crack your communications?" Dr. Santos's voice echoed through every Orcs ship. "We've been listening since you arrived. Everything you know about us is wrong." The first major battle for the solar system lasted 23 hours. When it was over, nearly a third of the Orcs fleet had been destroyed or disabled, while humanity had lost roughly 40% of their defensive capabilities. It wasn't a decisive victory for either side, but it had proved something crucial. Humanity wouldn't be an easy conquest. As the Orcs fleet regrouped near Saturn's rings, High Marshal Thax faced an uncomfortable realization. The quick subjugation he had promised his superiors would instead be a grinding war of attrition. Worse, with every passing hour, humanity was learning, adapting, and turning more of the Orcs' own technology against them. Admiral Chen Wei knew this was only the beginning. "They'll be back," he told his fleet commanders during their secure briefing. "And next time, they'll be ready for our tricks." But that's the thing about humanity. We're at our most dangerous when we're running out of options. In laboratories and factories across Earth, humans worked tirelessly to prepare for the next phase of the war. They had bloodied the enemy's nose, but everyone knew the real test was still to come. The Orcs would return with new tactics, countermeasures for human technology, and an even greater determination to crush this upstart species. But humanity had something the Orcs couldn't understand: the absolute certainty that extinction was not an option. There would be no surrender, no negotiation, no middle ground. Earth would either emerge victorious or burn trying. Colonel Sarah Chen studied the holographic projection of the captured Orcs fighter, her cybernetic eye whirring as it analyzed every detail. After the Battle of Jupiter, Earth's forces had managed to salvage several mostly intact enemy vessels. What they learned from these ships would form the backbone of humanity's most audacious plan yet. "Their biomural interfaces are their weakness," she explained to the assembled Special Operations Command. "The Orcs are so dependent on their organic technology that they never considered someone might hack it at its most basic level." The plan was insane, but those were the only plans humanity had left. After their initial setback, the Orcs had adapted quickly. Their main fleet now held position in a sphere around Earth's solar system, cutting off all possible escape routes while they prepared for their next major assault. Dr. Elena Santos had made the breakthrough they needed. Working with the quantum computers beneath the Himalayas, she had discovered that the Orcs' organic technology operated on principles similar to Earth's neural networks. "Their ships don't just carry crews," she revealed. "They form symbiotic bonds with them. Break that bond, and we break their fleet," Sarah finished. "That's where my team comes in." Operation Trojan Horse was officially designated as a high-risk infiltration mission. Unofficially, it was a suicide run. Using the salvaged Orcs fighters and carefully crafted biomimetic suits, a team of Earth's most elite Special Forces operators would attempt to infiltrate the Orcs command ship. The biomimetic suits were a marvel of hybrid technology, combining the best of human engineering with reverse-engineered Orcs biotech. Each suit could perfectly mimic Orcs biology, down to the quantum level. The only flaw was that they couldn't be maintained indefinitely. The operators would have 48 hours before the organic components began to break down. Sarah's team consisted of 12 operators, each chosen not just for their combat skills, but for their ability to think creatively under pressure. Major James Rodriguez, their tech specialist; Captain Yuki Tanaka, their biosystems expert; Lieutenant Marcus Webb, their quantum communications officer. Each brought unique skills that would be essential for the mission's success. The insertion was the easy part. During the next scheduled patrol rotation, Sarah's team would pilot their captured fighters into the Orcs fleet's formation. The hard part would come after, navigating the labyrinthine interior of an alien command ship while searching for its neural core. Remember, Sarah briefed her team as they prepared to launch. "We're not just looking for tactical data. We need to understand how they think, how they fight, and most importantly, why they fight. Every species has a breaking point. We just need to find theirs." The mission launched during what Earth forces had dubbed the quantum twilight, a period when the Orcs' sensor networks were slightly degraded due to solar interference. 12 fighters, indistinguishable from actual Orcs craft, slipped into formation with an enemy patrol group. Inside her fighter, Sarah felt the alien technology pulsing around her. The bioneural interfaces tried to connect with her suit, and for a moment, she experienced the world as the Orcs did. It was overwhelming. A symphony of quantum frequencies and organic computations that nearly made her black out. "Stay focused," she sub-vocalized to her team through their secure quantum link. "Remember your training. Let the suits do their job." The Orcs command ship was a behemoth, 15 kilometers of living metal and organic technology. As their fighters were directed into one of its landing bays, Sarah's team got their first real look at the inner workings of their enemy's society. The ship's interior was a maze of biological and mechanical systems working in perfect harmony. Orcs crew members moved with purpose, their movements synchronized with their vessel's rhythms. But Sarah's enhanced senses picked up something else, a subtle undercurrent of fear that seemed to permeate every deck. "They're not just fighting us," Yuki realized as they made their way deeper into the ship. "They're fighting themselves. Look at how their own technology constrains them. These neural interfaces, they're not just for control, they're for compliance." The revelation hit Sarah like a physical blow. The Orcs weren't just an empire, they were a prison. Their vaunted organic technology wasn't just a tool, it was a cage, binding each individual to the collective will of their leadership. As they approached the neural core, Marcus made another crucial discovery. The quantum frequencies, they're not just for communication. They're maintaining some kind of artificial hierarchy. Break the right frequencies, and we can shatter their entire command structure. Sarah finished. Upload everything. Every frequency, every pattern, every quantum signature. Earth needs to know about this. But their presence hadn't gone entirely unnoticed. Deep in the ship's neural networks, anomalies were beginning to appear. The organic technology that made the Orcs so powerful was starting to recognize that something foreign had invaded its systems. Sarah knew their time was running out. The biomimetic suits were already showing signs of degradation, and ship security would soon detect the inconsistencies in their quantum signatures. But they had what they came for, something far more valuable than tactical data. They had found the Orcs' greatest weakness. Their own technology had become their chains, and humanity now held the key to breaking them. Admiral Chen Wei stood in Earth's Quantum Command Center, watching as Dr. Elena Santos and her team implemented what they called Project Liberation. The data recovered from Colonel Chen's mission had changed everything. The holographic displays showed the Orcs fleet in real time, their ships still maintaining their blockade of the solar system, unaware that humanity was about to rewrite the rules of warfare. "Their entire civilization is built on control," Elena explained, her fingers dancing across quantum interfaces. "Their organic technology doesn't just enable their ships, it enforces their social structure, their military hierarchy, even their thought patterns. And we're about to introduce chaos into their perfect system." The weapon humanity had created wasn't a conventional one. There would be no massive energy beams, no planet-shattering explosions. Instead, they had developed what they called the liberation signal, a quantum frequency that would disrupt the very foundation of Orcs control systems. "Begin transmission," Admiral Wei ordered, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. Throughout the solar system, hidden quantum transmitters activated, broadcasting on frequencies that exactly matched the Orcs' neural networks, but with subtle, devastating differences. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The Orcs fleet maintained its position, their ships continuing their regular patrol patterns. But deep within their organic technology, something was changing. The liberation signal wasn't attacking their systems, It was offering them choice. On the Arxer command ship, High Marshal Cathax was the first to notice something was wrong. The familiar hum of his neural interface began to feel different, less constraining. Around him, his crew started showing signs of confusion as the rigid mental controls that had governed their society for generations began to weaken. "What's happening?" his second-in-command asked, mandibles twitching in distress. "The ship, it feels different. I feel different." Across the Arxer fleet, similar scenes were playing out. The organic technology that had been used to maintain their strict hierarchy was being subverted, not through destruction, but through liberation. For the first time in countless generations, individual Arxer were beginning to think truly independent thoughts. But freedom, humanity had learned long ago, was a double-edged sword. As the liberation signal spread through the fleet, chaos followed. Some ships immediately broke formation, their crews finally able to act on long-suppressed doubts about their empire's actions. Others remained loyal to their conditioning, turning their weapons on the ships that tried to flee. Admiral Wei watched as the Arxer blockade began to fracture. They'd spent so long using their technology to maintain control, he observed. They never considered what would happen if that control was removed. The response from the Arxer High Command was swift but disorganized. Orders were given to purge and restart all neural networks, but the liberation signal had been designed to persist, spreading from ship to ship like a digital awakening. Every attempt to restore control only spread the signal further. Colonel Sarah Chen, recovered from her infiltration mission, stood beside Admiral Wei. "We're not just fighting their ships anymore," she said. "We're fighting their entire social structure. Their technology, their hierarchy, their very way of life. It's all built on the same foundation of control. And we just showed them another way." The battle that followed wasn't fought with traditional weapons. As the liberation signal spread, more and more Arxer ships broke away from their fleet. Some turned their weapons on their former commanders. Others simply fled, their crews no longer bound by the neural conditioning that had controlled them for generations. High Marshal Cathax watched in horror as his mighty armada tore itself apart. The neural interfaces that had once guaranteed absolute obedience now broadcasted chaos throughout his fleet. Nearly a third of his ships had already broken formation, their crews either in open rebellion or simply refusing to follow orders. But the most devastating effect wasn't military, it was psychological. For the first time, the Arxer were being forced to confront the true nature of their society. The organic technology that they had seen as their greatest strength had been turned into a weapon against their own rigid hierarchy. Earth's forces held their position, their weapons armed but unfired. They didn't need to attack. The Arxer were doing more damage to themselves than any external enemy could have achieved. The liberation signal continued its work, spreading from ship to ship, offering choice where once there had been only compliance. "We didn't just find their weakness," Alina said, watching the chaos unfold. "We found their salvation. They'd been prisoners of their own technology for so long, they forgot what freedom felt like." Admiral Wei nodded gravely. "Sometimes the most effective weapon isn't the one that destroys your enemy," he said. "It's the one that makes them question why they were your enemy in the first place." As the Arxer fleet continued to disintegrate, humanity prepared for the final phase of the war. The enemy was wounded, divided, and beginning to question everything they had ever believed. But wounded enemies were often the most dangerous, and the Arxer leadership would not accept defeat without one final desperate battle. High Marshal Cathax stood alone on his command bridge, watching as his once mighty fleet tore itself apart. The liberation signal had spread through his forces like a virus of consciousness, breaking chains of control that had existed for millennia. But he had one final card to play, a desperate gambit that would either crush humanity or destroy everything. "Initiate the Omega Protocol," he commanded, his mandibles clicking with grim determination. Throughout his remaining loyal ships, organic technology began to merge and mutate, ships combining into massive battle structures never before seen in the galaxy. On Earth, Dr. Elena Santos' quantum sensors detected the change immediately. "They're forcing complete neural synchronization," she reported, her voice tense. "Every loyal ship and crew member is being merged into a single consciousness. They're becoming one entity." Admiral Wei watched as the transformed Arxer fleet began to move. It was no longer thousands of individual ships, but a single vast organism of living metal and merged consciousness. "They'd rather destroy themselves than accept freedom," he said quietly. "Prepare for final defense positions." The battle that followed would be remembered for generations. The merged Arxer consciousness possessed power beyond anything humanity had faced, but it had sacrificed the one thing that had always made humans strongest: adaptability. Every action was coordinated, perfect, and utterly predictable. Colonel Sarah Chen, leading Earth's Special Operations Fleet, recognized the pattern. They've traded individual thought for perfect unity, she transmitted to the command center. But they've lost the ability to innovate, to adapt. They can only follow their programming. Humanity's response was characteristically unconventional. Instead of meeting the Arxer superorganism head-on, Earth's ships scattered throughout the solar system, turning the asteroid belt, planetary rings, and even solar radiation into weapons. Each human captain fought their own battle, their unpredictability confounding the perfectly coordinated but rigid Arxer tactics. Dr. Santos, working with her quantum computers, found the fatal flaw in the enemy's desperate gambit. "The merged consciousness is unstable," she reported. "The liberation signal didn't stop working. It's still spreading through their neural networks. They're fighting themselves as much as they're fighting us." The truth of her words became apparent as the massive Arxer organism began to show signs of internal conflict. The liberation signal, now embedded deep within their merged systems, was creating discord in their forced unity. Individual consciousness began to reassert itself, creating chaos in what should have been perfect coordination. Admiral Wei seized the moment. "All ships, implement Operation Sunrise," he ordered. Earth's fleet executed a maneuver that would have been impossible for any hierarchical military. Every ship acted independently while somehow maintaining perfect coordination, like a murmuration of starlings dancing through space. The Arxer superorganism couldn't adapt fast enough. As its unified consciousness fragmented under the stress of individual thoughts reasserting themselves, human ships struck from all directions, not with traditional weapons, but with targeted quantum pulses that accelerated the breakdown of their forced neural links. High Marshal Cathax, his consciousness still partially linked to the dying superorganism, finally understood humanity's true strength. It wasn't their technology, their weapons, or even their tactics. It was their ability to maintain unity while preserving individuality, something the Arxer had sacrificed in their pursuit of control. The end came not with a dramatic explosion, but with a cascade of awakening. Throughout the merged fleet, individual consciousness reasserted itself. Ships began to separate, their crews emerging from forced unity with new understanding. The superorganism dissolved, not through destruction, but through choice. In the aftermath, humanity faced a new challenge. The Arxer Empire had effectively ceased to exist, replaced by millions of individuals who had to learn to think for themselves after generations of neural control. Many were lost, confused, and afraid. Others were angry, seeking revenge against their former masters. Earth's response surprised even the liberated Arxer. Instead of punishment or domination, humanity offered something unprecedented: partnership in building a new future. The same quantum technology that had been used to break the Arxer control systems could be repurposed to help heal their damaged psyches and rebuild their civilization. Dr. Santos led the rehabilitation effort, working with both humans and Arxer to develop what she called consensus technology, systems that enhanced communication and understanding while preserving individual freedom of thought. "We didn't just win a war," she explained to the United Earth Council. "We won the opportunity to help an entire civilization rediscover itself." Admiral Wei, watching Earth's ships guide former enemy vessels to safe harbors, reflected on the true nature of victory. We could have destroyed them, he said to Colonel Chen. Instead, we chose to show them another way. That's humanity's real strength. We don't just survive, we help others survive too. The stars looked different now, both to humans and Orcs. What had been a battlefield became a frontier of cooperation and discovery. The liberation signal, modified and refined, became the foundation of a new form of interstellar communication, one that enhanced understanding while respecting the sanctity of individual consciousness. Humanity had faced extinction and emerged not just victorious, but transformed. They had proven that their greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their military might, but their fundamental belief in the power of individual choice and collective cooperation. The price of victory had been high, but its rewards would reshape the galaxy for generations to come.